Hi guys, Ronnie here and welcome to the workshop. Today I want to show you one of the first bike builds that we've done this year, and that is this giant Trinity Advanced. And the reason why I decided to show you this bike is that I know that a lot of you still ride rim brake, time trial or triathlon bikes, and this one is done in a way that basically maximizes performance for a relatively low budget, because the whole build comes out to probably less than the price of new disc brake frame sets, at least the higher end ones. So I thought it would be interesting because these bikes still have their place. Of course, they were fast ones. In fact, this is one of the fastest designs from the earlier days, but the laws of physics don't really change. So if it was fast once, then it's fast still, particularly if you use the correct component choices, which I want to discuss here today. So, as I said, it's a giant Trinity Advanced frame set in size extra small, and it's probably one of the last ones ever made or sold, because these are no longer made. In fact, it has been just recently superseded by the new disc brake version, which admittedly looks really similar. So, as always, let's start at the front of the bike to explain the specifications and the choices made here. And one of the highlights of this bike is, I think, the wheel set. So on the front, we have a head Jet 9, which is not only one of the fastest wheels available. This being a rim brake bike, it also performs really well in that regard. So it has a machined aluminum brake track. A lot of you elitists and snobs might think that it's not a full carbon clincher wheel, or not full carbon wheel or rim in general, so it's no good. But actually the opposite is true. There's no real reason to use material in an application just for the sake of it, and that clearly shows here. Had one more with common sense, and they just stuck to what works. And the result of that is that you have as I said, machined aluminum brake track and an aluminum rim, black anodized, so you don't really notice that. It gives you great durability and excellent braking power and modulation, which is important, admittedly, because this bike is notorious for not having great brakes in general. So that definitely helps. And on top of it, you have a carbon fairing, which admittedly is pretty delicate, so you need to be careful with it. But the result is a wheel that's extremely fast. As I said, one of the fastest. Maybe the Aero Coach Titan is ever so slightly faster, but surely it doesn't break as well. It's not as high quality or as durable as this one. And there's no real weight penalty for doing this. And you can safely use latex tubes, which is important, because carbon clinchers tend to overheat those, which results in a catastrophic puncture. Here it's not really happening. So the benefits are multifaceted. Obviously, this is not a cheap wheel. This is basically has been and still is head's highest tier rim brake offering, and for good reason. It just works. I've used it on my track speed concept back in the day. I loved them. Well, this Jet 9 front with the combination of the disc. So yeah, really good. Here they're paired up with a set of Michelin powered time trial tires. And these are possibly the fastest pure clincher tires available still. Obviously now the Corsa Speed and TTTR probably are better choices if you have tubeless, and with these wheels you can, but this rider prefers to go with tubes. So for that, the Power TT is still a great option, although I haven't seen very good availability of these recently. So yeah, it might make sense to also try for example, new Corsa Speed or Pro Speed, should I say, with tubes. It's not perfect because those tires are designed to be run tubeless, but still you can run them with tubes. So that's the front wheel. It also has a Silca speed shield, which neatly houses the valve, so it prevents rattling, and it's also a slight aerodynamic marginal gain. And really, it's a shame that it's a discontinued product, because I still have a few of them left over and use it on all of my wheels. I just like it. It's a nice little finishing touch. The rear wheel is made in a very similar fashion, and it has all the same principles applied to it, except it's a full disc cover and it's a lenticular disc, pretty heavily shaped. Another big advantage of having a non-structural disc wheel is that you can modify the shape however you want, just to suit the aerodynamics, because you don't need to worry about stiffness, because that's not where it comes from. You still have the spokes inside. And also, a wheel like this, if you hit a pothole or something, it can be easily repaired, because you can just debond the covers, you can through the wheel, change the spokes, whatever you want, rebuild it, and rebond the covers, which I had offered as a service. And I had to use it myself once when I hit a pothole on my Vanquish disc wheel. So that's a great touch, and I'm not really sure that many people know about this difference, so I thought it's worth mentioning. Yeah, so those are the wheels. I think a highlight of this build. Now, as you can see, currently they're mounted with just some regular skewers, and that's the reason for that is the rider or the owner of this bike has some tri-rig sticks, which is something that you really want to use with a build like this. So for maximum aerodynamic gains, you want to use a set of aero skewers like these, and these will be later installed when he supplies them to us. And it's a really not a big investment, but saves around 2 to 3 watts, depending, of course, on your speed and your current setup. And if you compare that, that's the same amount as a deep wheel versus a disc wheel saves. So it's a really neat thing, and we also offer it in our web shop for our European buyers. So if you want some tri-rig products without the hassle of importing them, we have most of the products in stock, including the sticks. So these will be linked below. Then going upwards to the base bar and the front end setup in general. So on the base bar we have some Shimano Dura-Ace levers. These are the STR9160s, the single button version. So this is the latest that Shimano offers for rim brakes, and they pair up with the rest of the 1x12, otherwise Ultegra group set. Obviously, the time trial versions of these group sets are still fully wired, and the old SD50 wiring, the large diameter one, is paired through an adapter to the new SD300 thinner wiring that the 12-speed components use. So it's kind of a mixed bag. I'm pretty sure that Shimano will release an updated version of these time trial components in not too distant future, or maybe even not. They work exactly like you want them to. Maybe they will bring out a wireless version like SRAM did. That would be pretty neat. But this is what we have right now. On the base bar, we also have some Sync Ergonomics foam grips, which are a great alternative to bar tape. I don't really like bar tape on the time trial bikes, so I advise the clients against using them, because they tend to add a fair bit of drag due to that ripped surface, particularly if you use these thick bar tapes like Supercars and so on, which a lot of people like to use. Then the riser system is more or less stock, and that comes from Giant. This is in fact a pretty well adjustable bike. A good benefit that it offers is that actually the wires for the extension buttons are run externally, so you can work on the stack without actually disconnecting all that many components. So that's great. Although it's not as neat, of course, as fully integrated components, but if you're done with setting it up, you can just tidy the wires using some electrical tape, which is what we'll do, of course, when the position is finalized. Now the saddle position has already been set up to match his previous bike, and the front end also in terms of length, but in aero testing we want to find out the optimal amount of stack to give a good combination of aerodynamics and power output. And really, adjustment in the stack height is where you get most of that benefit. Then one thing that has been changed though is the extension clamp, and that is supplied by Fourier's, and it's a 15-degree rise version. The standard clamp that comes from Giant is flat, so the poles come out from there horizontally. So this gives a bit of extra rise. Now, I'm not really sure this would be perfect with this particular bar setup, because these also have quite a lot of rise. And I know that it's been extremely popular to, you know, raise your hands to the sky, particularly by triathletes, but I can assure you it's not a good thing aerodynamically, because your hands are bluff bodies, and so I can assure you that aerodynamically that's not a good thing, because your arms and hands are bluff bodies, they're not aerodynamic at all, and your helmet, if you use an aero helmet, it's designed to be as aerodynamic as possible. So if you raise your hands up to cover your helmet in your frontal area, that's, you know, doesn't work. So might be too much, I would say. But of course we'll see. We also have the standard poles from Giant, which I think they're pretty low, but if you raise them by 15 degrees, I think in combination that's going to be just the right amount of rise. As for the arm pads, those are also upgraded to these profile design ones. It's a small rider and he has small forearms, of course, so this is a pad that really does fit into that use, because they're just narrow. A lot of aftermarket brands, also the ones that we sell, are really quite wide. So yeah, if you have very narrow forearms, it's perhaps not the best option. Yeah, so on the front we also have the integral brake, of course, the integrated brake. It's quite finicky to adjust. The adjustment bolts with the spring tension don't really do shit. So yeah, it's quite tricky, but it works just fine in these new pristine conditions, particularly with the new Dura-Ace Teflon coated brake cables. So now it's sweet. The Liverpool is really nice. For how long? I don't know. With this newer version of the frame, you get this plastic little cover that fills the inside of the fork, so not actually all the crap can go into the brake, so hopefully that will help. The rear brake is even worse, but that can be exchanged to the Tri-Rig Omega in the worst case. So yeah, we can do that when inevitably, or maybe not, the brake fails. So I already talked about the stems. We use the lowest setup here. There is also an aero, like a hydration container that fits around here. We can only fit that when the position is finalized, otherwise it's a bit finicky. The extensions are the Profile Design 52ASC. So as I said, they're really quite high. They're arrow-shaped around the forearms, which is good, but I just have the hunch that it's going to be too tall for this rider. Then on the end of them, we of course have the SWR 9160 buttons from Shimano, which, as you can see, are not fully installed, again because of the future adjustments for the position. Now, originally, this box, of course, used for triathlon, but even the UCI Ready bike uses this because it used to house the junction box for the Shimano 11-speed group set. Now, since this is 12-speed, there's no junction box, so it's basically empty. So you get more space for gels and stuff. The bike also comes with this aero bottle, which looks neat. One thing I don't understand is why is it wider than the bottom bracket? Quite a lot wider, I would say it's even double. Because usually when you get these specific built-in bottles from Cervelo or my Colnago or whatever other bike, they're perfectly matched to fit the down tube. Maybe it's because this is an extra small frame. I don't really remember from working on other Giants if it's still like that, but yeah, I would say that's not ideal. Also, the release mechanism is not like a regular bottle, but it's like a rail that you slide it into, which means it's probably very secure, but also quite finicky to put in. We'll see. So, as you can see, the bike is built up as a one-bike configuration. So we have the wide range 1134 cassette at the back, 54 tooth chainring on the front. A comment to the chainring, this is an Alugear chainring, which are really well priced, have a really wide range of availability for sizes, colors, etc. Aero, non-aero version, 1x, 2x. It's all well and good. In my experience though, this is not really a great chainring. Yes, it's cheap, it looks good, but it's quite flexy. This is just a 54, but yeah, still, you can see what I mean. I can flex it with one finger, so that's not ideal. It's light though, obviously. Not much material in there. And it's really quite loud as well, particularly in the extremes of the chain angles, which admittedly you're not really planning on using on a time trial bike, but still. This was not my recommendation of part. I would just go for an Aerocoach Aten, which is really great, or a Pyramid Cycle Design, or something like that, which are much more robust, heavier, more expensive, but they get no chain drops, no flex, and a lot less noise. We have used some lightweight aluminum chainring bolts from Cybre as well. These are available specifically in a 1x size. The power meter is a Power2Max NG Eco paired with a rotor. That was Stefan, by the way. Rotor Altu, very short 155mm crank arms. This is obviously the 24mm version, given that the Giant use a BB86 bottom bracket. You don't really want to use a dub or a 30mm spindle because then the bearings are extremely tiny and not very durable. So that's that. The frame doesn't come with a blanking cover for the front derailleur mount, like many of them don't, unfortunately. And yeah, but luckily at least it's removable. A lot of older frames don't even have that, and the front neck mount is riveted or even built into the frame itself. In order to prevent water ingress, I have installed two titanium, kind of really nice flat headed bolts on there, the same ones I use on my Colnago, so that's neat. One of the striking features of this frame set in particular is the relatively extreme seat post angle. It looks even, like beyond vertical, and gives you a very forward saddle position, or at least it seems to. However, in reality, it's not as bad. Here we have, admittedly, a very triathlon-like position with around 25mm of setback when measured from the bottom bracket to the nose of the saddle. Speaking of the saddle, it's a new Physic Aries 3D printed saddle, and I have to say it looks really damn good, and it's relatively nice and comfy. So we'll see how that goes. Definitely the shape, the padding, the channel, all of these things look really, really right in this saddle, and actually the shape is very closely reminiscent to the WOW V8 saddle, which I'm using, so that can be only a good thing. It also comes with an integrated real bottle holder, so it's neat as well. Yeah, for the rest of the build, you of course use a Shimano wax chain. This is an Dura-Ace model. That's what we use generally for all bike builds, regardless of the tier of the Shimano group set, just because it's the longest lasting and lowest friction option available. So in the end, it will always be cheaper in the long run. The cassette, as I said, Ultegra 1134, standard Ultegra rear mech. Another neat addition for this bike would have been a direct mount derailleur hanger, kind of a pet peeve of mine, but we couldn't find one anywhere to fit this frame. So standard one it is for now. Yeah, so that's pretty much it about this build. As you can see, it uses relatively well-priced components on a relatively well-priced frame and still adds up to an extremely fast setup. So maybe you'll find this in some way inspirational or useful. That's all about this one. Thanks for watching and see you next time.